What is up? What is up? Welcome to the show. My name is Chris. I'm your host. I call this little show the Weekly Spinner Rack. And what is it? Well, it's just our opportunity to talk about the comic books that came out in the past week, as well as the comic book news of the past week. Maybe do some drawing, chat with the people there in live chat, and just hang out each week talking about comics. Usually about 2 hours long. I've got a lot of good news for you tonight. If you tuned in this time for the first time, you're getting one of the rare good ones. Nice to see everybody. Let me give some shout outs to some folks that are dropping in. Hello to all the folks. It's going fast, so I'm just sort of grabbing some hellos there. But lovely to have so many of you folks joining us today. It's going to be a real fun one. It really is. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing pretty well. I'm trying to think, is there anything like new since the last week? Yeah, I won't go into detail on it, but you know what? I did have a bit of a tragedy actually at home. Some of you may have heard me mention this before. My wife and I have a koi pond in the back, and we're very fond of our fish, but some sort of critter got at them, and we lost our six biggest koi fish, our six oldest koi fish all got taken out. That was very unpleasant. It's very sad, but managing, just keeping busy with work, keeping busy making the show. Hopefully you got to see the latest comic Tropes episode that came out this past week, which was about an aspect of the Ninja Turtles that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, the guest era of the original Mirage Studios run. And if there's time, I've been drawing today. I sketched out this Leonardo that I'd love to ink with all of you. So that can be fun. Got some really interesting comics to talk about that came out this week, or that I picked up at least for the first time. Not a tremendous amount, but we'll get to that stuff. I think we'll probably start with the news in just a sec. Oh, that's kind of you. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, kind of sad. Let's see. Are you ready for the NFL season? Yeah, absolutely. I do like football. Football is my guilty pleasure. I say guilty because there's absolutely evidence that people get serious head injuries, but I have to admit that it's like a really exciting sport that I love. I don't always get to watch all the games because I typically do work on Sundays. So I'll sort of get to catch snippets. I'll get to watch some, not really Monday night games either, because I tend to do this show, but Thursday and just catch recaps. Anyway, yeah, poor fishies. Excellent art. Well, we'll hope so. We'll see. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for watching the Ninja Turtles video. I really appreciate that. Yes, thank you. If you have an opportunity, just hit like on this video. That really, really helps. Love it. Let's see. Kaiju number 8 rules. New anime coming out. I love it. I'm not really, really out of the loop with watching anime based on the manga that's popular these days. I haven't watched a single minute of Demon Slayer, for instance, which is tremendously popular. But I do try to keep up with the manga. I'm having a good time with it, and I'll get into that when I get to the reviews today. Hey, Daniel, always nice to see you here. What are my favorite issues from the TMNT guest air aside from the Rick Veitch? I mentioned it, the 3 Michael Zulli issues, which is called Soul's Winter. I really like that when I was younger, and I like it now. And aside from that, I didn't love the guest era. I found it a little frustrating when I was a new reader. It just felt like the main story kept getting sort of pushed back. But anyway. Favorite sports aside from football? I mean, I like to play golf. I don't really love watching it that much, but I like to play golf. When I was younger, I played volleyball pretty seriously, and I enjoyed that. And sometimes I'll get caught up in Olympics fever, but and you know what? I'll tend to watch baseball and basketball when it gets close to the end of the season. Eating a little something. Plymouth, Massachusetts, fellow Massachusettsian here. Thank you. Oh, that's kind of you, Steve. Yeah, sure. Since you mentioned that, I shouldn't have eaten. What was I thinking? There was a issue with Patreon charging patrons for the most recent month. They moved where they are based out of from California, USA to Ireland, some sort of a tax credit thing, but they didn't give anybody a heads up. So some people's payment methods, their bank or their credit card, might have just declined that as a fake charge, and you may not know it, but you have to like either figure out on your own like another payment method or tell your bank or credit that card that it's a real payment if you want to stay a patron with whoever you're supporting, whether that's me or anybody else. Quite frustrating. Hockey, sure. Yeah, Phil, he did do also a sort of a Ratfink type issue. There was a fourth guest era issue that he did. Super cool. I've always been a pretty big fan of Rick Veitch, especially like anything he did in the 80s, like could not be beat. Really, really strong, really strong. Oh, I think Jim Lawson was a really strong artist. I liked the Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book in the late 80s into the early 90s a little more than the regular Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book. Mm-hmm. I don't really read comics on the toilet, no. Back when I was hanging out with Kirkman regularly, he said that was one of his favorite things to do, and I'm pretty sure he was serious, but I don't know. Oh, absolutely agree, Jim. It's just some of the first stuff that I discovered in comics. You know, first I did discover some Spider-Man and Batman stuff, but going to the comic book store for the first time, and I'm really grateful that my mom looked that up in a phone book and took me to one, was able to discover The Tick, Ninja Turtles, Usagi Yojimbo, and a bunch of other cool, like sort of indie stuff. You know, there were all these publishers like Kamiko and First and I don't know, just all sorts of really interesting publishers at the time. It was a really exciting time to get into comics. Hey, it's my good friend Kevin. He's got a great channel called Peg Warmers. You should definitely check it out. But tell you what, let me bring up the news of the week. We'll get started on that. Look at that killer thumbnail. All it is just me going to a bunch of X-Men. But why? Because X-Men are definitely in the news this week. We'll get to that. Let's go to the next piece of news. So we're going to start with this. I was fascinated. I never thought something like this would happen. But the Marvel visual effects artists, the ones that are employed by Disney, have actually voted to unionize. Now, we've heard a lot of stories in the last year about them being overworked. And of course, they always use... the Marvel Studios also use a lot of outside special effects studios, but they do have an internal effects house, and supposedly those folks were getting, worked pretty darn hard. So the news is that they voted to unionize, and that's actually, at least from everything I was reading in the Hollywood trade publications, this is a really big step for a visual effects house to unionize. Mostly they are not union, and they sort of bid for projects, which means they're always trying to cut their competition by a little, but it also means that like the margins are really small and that their employees typically have to do some pretty tough work for that price. It's kind of a broken system. A super majority of the more than 50 workers at the Marvel VFX house voted that they wanted to be represented by, it's commonly called the IATSE, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. Pretty huge news. They just want to have protections for, working a certain number of hours, guaranteeing a certain amount of pay for the hours that they do work. I think it's pretty reasonable to be. Yes. Pixel effing. Peg Warmers is right. That's what they call when like a director or the producers can't make up their minds on effects and they keep asking people to redo the effects. Whereas if there are certain directors that plan ahead very well and they end up not having to redo too much stuff. They just get what they're looking for. A great example is apparently the current Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie that's out was very well planned ahead for by its director, Jeff Rowe, and producers Evan Goldberg, Seth Rogen, they really thought ahead for what they wanted to do and gave their visual effects artists very reasonable hours, a good work-life balance. Proves that it can be done. It can be done. And you know what? Like, look, sometimes unions can be honestly like super annoying in certain industries. They absolutely can. But at the same time, I think that they're often very necessary because the sad fact is otherwise people get exploited. And that's not always like an individual businessman or businesswoman's choice so much as a business entity is always going to be making the options for having the least expenses and making the most profit. So, if one visual effects house underbids another, they'll typically go with that, but that in turn does mean that those people might get overworked. It's tricky. No, the Spider-Verse people are very much not unionized. And in fact, that's going to be some news that we're going to talk about later in this episode is some Spider-Verse stuff. But I thought that was interesting. Let's see what else we got for news. Oh, I forgot. There's this one last point. What happens now that they voted that they want to be represented by a union is there's something called the National Labor Relations Board. They investigate to make sure that the request is reasonable and can be accommodated, to sort of do some due diligence research. And then they set a date for the employees to vote whether they actually want to be in that union. Anyway, so that's what happens. I'm not one to promote McDonald's necessarily, but I got a kick out of this. What you are seeing there is the McDonald's bag. It's part of an upcoming limited time thing where you can get this bag with food in it, and they're just sort of bragging about the various movies and stuff that they've been in, and TV shows and music videos. Times that McDonald's has been featured in pop culture, essentially. But it does relate to comics a little bit, as I've hinted at with this tiny little image here of Loki at a McDonald's. So what they're calling it is the as featured in meal. Cool. That rolls off the tongue. When I hear as featured in, I don't know if this is correct or not, but I think of those as seen on TV infomercial type things, like, have you ever tried to hold 2 buckets of popcorn? It can't be done. And like the guy drops that, or, he's trying to wash his car and he just can't hold on to the hose. And they're like, now there's a better way with the hose gripper gloves. They will grip your hose very, very well. It's so stupid. What it will include is, as you see at the very bottom here, after the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, Loki Season 2. Apparently in Season 2, Loki's going to go into a McDonald's. And so, to tie in with that, they are branding their sweet and sour sauce Loki sauce. I don't know. I guess he's both sweet and sour. I did realize my phrasing there. Yes, I was talking about hose gripping quite a bit. Sorry about that. Have you heard about the new McDonald's as featured in meal? It can be seen in movies such as Coming to America and TV shows like The Office, the US version. Anyway, there's more. Are you guys going to get Loki sauce? The meal will include exclusive videos, I think. Like, I think that they're going to have like a link to watch videos and get access to custom merchandise. Okay. Well, hey, I guess that Mulan Szechuan sauce took off about 20 years later when it was featured in a Rick and Morty. So who knows? Maybe people will try to load up on On Loki sauce. Oh, what a great point from Ryan G. Look at all, they've mentioned all these different movies and stuff. They didn't put in Mac and Me. Mac and Me had like the most blatant McDonald's tie-in advertising ever. It also like it was aliens that could only survive on Coke or Pepsi. They drank it like water. I forget which one it was. And there's this humongous scene in the middle where everybody does a choreographed dance routine in a McDonald's. And it's not a musical, and it's not like any real magic has been used. Just people start dancing, and they start dancing in sync. It's crazy. It's crazy. Mac and Me is a legitimately funny bad movie, in my opinion. And God bless Paul Rudd for tricking Conan for like 20 years, showing the same Mac and Me clip, and constantly finding new ways to trick Conan into playing it or see it. I love it. I love Paul Rudd for that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about with the Mac and Me dance? Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's embarrassing how commercial it is. It's embarrassing. I don't know if this will get claimed or not, but I'm gonna show something real quick. Let's see that. Okay, kid. Mute the sound just because I'm sure that they'll try to claim me. That's the alien in this suit. It's because the alien suit was really bad, so they were always trying to find ways to hide the alien suit. But like, look, all of a sudden, all these people are just like dancing, including Ronald. Yeah, they're just doing jumps and stuff. Which is, in a way, yeah, it's kind of mean because the main character is in a wheelchair, so he's just sort of watching everyone have fun. He doesn't look very happy, does he? Let me look at that guy. He's not having a whole lot of fun. All right. I'll get back to the news, but I had to react. Yeah, best Teddy cosplay. Yeah, that's true. Actually, the kid in the wheelchair does get killed by the police at the end of Mac and Me, and then Mac comes and brings him back to life. But it's a surprisingly violent scene for a very young kids movie. I have not seen Eric Andre's Ronald McDonald sketch, but I'll look into it later. All right, so get ready to get your Loki sauce, and we'll keep moving. HBO has ordered what the trade publications keep saying is a Marvel DC parody series. Sort of is, but not necessarily directly. It's more just like about that sort of aspect. And it's going to star this lady, Aya Cash, who was on The Boys, and that was comic book related, so I threw her on there. Anyway, it's going to be a half-hour comedy. It's called The Franchise. It's about the crew making a superhero movie. That sounds like it actually has a lot of potential to play with the absurdities of Hollywood and excess. I think it could potentially be funny with the right team. This might be the right team. The main actors are going to be like Himesh Patel. You may have seen him in, what was that Beatles movie? Yesterday? Where like he woke up in a world where nobody remembered the Beatles songs except for him. And Aya Cash, I forget the name of the sitcom that she was on, but she was honestly pretty impressive in The Boys. Really detestable. Some other genre actors that will be part of like the supporting cast, I think some of you guys will know. Richard E. Grant, Daniel Bruhl. So cool actors. And one of the producers, this is the one that impressed me, was Armando Iannucci, who's done a little bit of comic book work, but is probably best known for his sitcoms like the British sitcom The Thick of It, here in America, Veep. I think that those are both very funny shows. The fact that he's involved makes me encouraged that this might be worth catching. We shall see. We shall see. Do I think Deadpool 3 and Spider-Man 4 will be delayed until 2025? There's no way Spider-Man 4 would come out any sooner than 2025. Like, they don't have any of that locked down. So, yeah. That was it. Yes, you're the worst. I've seen like one episode and it was funny, but I've only seen the one. Veep is amazing. His involvement has me optimistic too. Good, good. That's nice to see. They should have done live action Super Duper Man. Well, maybe next time. Yeah, I think it's a decent premise for making a TV show. And, you know, maybe season 1, for instance, is making a superhero movie. And then if the show's main actor, the main stars, I should say, of the show are writers and producers and directors, they could always go into making a different kind of movie next and keep most of the same cast. We shall see. Chris, I was watching a lot of your older Comic Tropes vids, and I noticed you don't do any more little skits before or after each vid. Those are so funny. I love doing that kind of stuff, no one. And, you know, maybe it's where I'm at mentally. I just feel like I haven't had any great ideas, and I haven't wanted to force anything. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still thinking about like what I could do to sort of just keep the show fresh and keep it moving forward. So thinking about it. Oh man, Peter Capaldi as Malcolm Tucker was a fantastic role, at least as iconic as his Doctor Who work. And I mean, yeah, Malcolm Tucker had the filthiest mouth, but he was hilarious. That could work. Adapting Connor and Palmiotti's book, The Pro, that could work. Let's see. Have we ever had a Spider-Man and Superman movie come out in the same year? Look up what year Man of Steel came out. I feel like it's possible that could have come out the same year as one of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I don't know. I'd have to look at it. It's possible. Moving on. I was kind of impressed with Robert Kirkman for this. He sort of addressed the lack of representation in the original Invincible comics. I didn't think that was something, you know, that they would like sort of face head on, but he really did talk about it this week. If you've watched the Amazon Prime cartoon adaptation, you'll see that among some of the changes that they've made were the fact that like Mark Grayson is clearly Korean American, and Mark's first girlfriend, Amber, was changed from white to black. Just a couple of the changes. And here's a quote that Robert had. He was talking to TV Guide, and he said, that's something that's been really important to us. We have to recognize that a couple of dumb white guys made this comic in the early 2000s, and there's a real lack of diversity in that series. So he was just saying, you know, hey, it was sort of a product of who I was and a product of the time, but that he feels that it makes sense to sort of diversify that a little bit more and set it more in like, you know, a living, breathing world. I think that the cartoon adaptation has been really strong personally. I like it. I think it's a solid idea to make a couple of these changes as long as the characters' personalities and backgrounds still make sense, which so far they do. Was it old? I came across it he did a follow-up interview with Comic Book Resources this week, but I was going back to the original quote. But he talked about it a little bit more with Comic Book Resources this past week. Let's see. It's Kirkman's thing. He should be able to do whatever he wants with it. Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. In TMNT, they adapted Baxter Stockman from Afro-American to Caucasian and back again. So, yeah. Would you guys like to see a live-action Spider-Man series like Smallville, Flash? I don't know. Depends. You know, they said that they're making a live-action Silk series, and I want to say Spider-Man 2099 they were looking into. We'll see if those actually come together. I believe Amazon was the one that was developing the Silk series directly with Sony. We shall see. No, I didn't talk about this last week. No. So we're a couple months away. Wait, September, October. We're 3 months away from Invincible season 2 starting up properly. But I do like the adaptation quite a bit. They could be racist, but I don't think that they always are. Sometimes a character needs to be a certain identity. Ragman is white, and his powers are based through Jewish culture. So we wouldn't want to change him to, say, a Chinese man. You wouldn't want to make Black Panther the king of an African country. You wouldn't want to make him white. But is there anything about, say, Peter Parker that says that he needs to be, like a white guy? Not necessarily, in my opinion. So sometimes these changes aren't that big, and you got to keep in mind that could make a little more sense, in my opinion. I really don't think it's a big deal. It's not always like the right idea, but I think that it like I honestly don't think it hurts that much. I don't think it's a big deal to add some more diversity, because otherwise, sincerely, most of the Marvel and D stuff, like so many of their characters were created in the 60s, and almost all of them were white guys. It would get pretty boring. Just my 2 cents. I know not everybody went to see this, but I did, and I loved it. Slam Dunk. I made an episode fairly recently about the manga. I think it's a fantastic manga. I think it's a great comic. I think it's a great sports comic. There's a lot of levels that it works on, and I really like the adaptation. The anime was directed by the manga writer and artist Takehiko Inoue, and it's crossed $1 million here in the U.S. Actually in all of North America. It's earned over $105 million worldwide, which is very impressive for an animated movie from Japan. It is the 14th highest grossing film in Japan and the 8th highest grossing anime. We're talking all time. That's pretty cool. Well, I think that just sort of backs up my point. Yes, Miles Morales, is in a lot of ways a similar background to Peter. I wouldn't say make Peter black now necessarily, because we do have Miles. But if we didn't, I think it wouldn't. I think it would be the same sort of idea. I think it could work, is what I'm saying. It would be a little different, but it wouldn't be that different. Even Stan Lee said he'd welcome an adaptation of Peter Parker that's a different ethnicity. Stan was actually, one of the good things about Stan was he was fairly progressive with including different types of people. Black Panther was a very early example of a black superhero, very early. But anyway, back to Slam Dunk. It's really successful in Asia. Over here, not as much. Not that many people have read this basketball manga from the 90s, but I do recommend it. I really think it holds up pretty well. Yeah. It's going to end its theatrical run in Japan on August 31st. So it's got about 2 more weeks. So if you're swinging by Japan, you might want to see it. A Vagabond animated adaptation would be lovely. What I'd like even more is for that series to get some official resolution, a real conclusion. No, this movie is not a prequel, but you can watch it without having read the original manga. It sort of distills the story into one big game and has flashbacks. So, and it's a slightly different take on things. A lot of it is super, super loyal, but it does change the viewpoint character from Sakuragi to Ryota. So there's a few differences there. Don't know how you guys knew about this. Some of you might have, but there was a class action lawsuit against Action Lab. That's a comic publisher. Well, that class action lawsuit did get dismissed this week. Let me get into it. So, back in February of 2022, so over a year ago, 40 some creators all filed this class action lawsuit against Action Lab Comics. They alleged things like non-payment, that their rights weren't being respected, like things were being adapted without their input, things like that. But both parties requested and were granted to have this lawsuit be dismissed. So why would the artists and writers want to dismiss this lawsuit? Well, it's because, according to Bleeding Cool anyway, they said that they reached out to some of these creators and that the goal is that they intend to refile this lawsuit in a different jurisdiction because it was not getting addressed very quickly. It kept getting backburnered. So they think that if they choose a different venue, they could probably expedite the proceedings. Makes sense. Makes sense. No, they didn't quite handle it privately. It is apparently still going to be a class action lawsuit. It doesn't sound like Action Lab has made any offer to settle with the parties, but yeah, it's just, but for right now, that lawsuit has been dismissed. And just to be clear, some of the people that have published through Action Lab, you haven't heard of all of them, but some of them have, name recognition. David, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Pipose, he's writing a bunch of stuff for DC these days. So, yeah. I'm not a lawyer, so I didn't know that. I was wondering about that, actually. Beowulf says that it's pretty common in class action lawsuits to occasionally dismiss and refile them. Thank you very much, Rick. Thanks for watching. That's really, really kind of you. It's really nice of you. What comic books did Action Lab publish? I mean, you either know or you don't, is all I can say. Like, I'm not somebody that's read tons of Action Lab books, but yeah, we've got Spencer and Locke here is the one I grabbed as an example. You like some of the Action Lab titles? Yeah, I mean, they're it's great that some of these creators are getting an outlet. They're just alleging that they're not getting paid properly. Or at all. Or at all. Moving on. Got a big kick out of this. Marvel Comics teased a sequel. This is their official ad right here. The most notorious Spider-Man story ever told. First of all, decent marketing. They've got a point. But was it the most notorious Spider-Man story ever? No, I think that you could definitely make arguments for One More Day, Sins Past, the Clone Saga. I think all of those are more infamous. But Spider-Man Reign was definitely notorious. Let me get into it. So, they both announced this, and they had a small preview in the latest Amazing Spider-Man issue 31 that there will be a sequel to Carrie Andrews' 4-issue series Spider-Man Reign from 2006. If you haven't read it, it's set in the future, and literally, Spider-Man's radioactive sperm has led to the death of Mary Jane. I guess she got cancer for being intimate with Spidey. Gross. That's the part why it's notorious. The rest of it is actually a pretty cool story. There's a lot of similarities to Dark Knight Returns, and I think that's intentional because there is a character in it named Miller Jansen, if I'm remembering right, which obviously is a reference to Frank Miller and Klaus Janson from Dark Knight Returns. It's set about 30 years in Spider-Man's future. He's older, he's retired. Basically, there's a mayor, I think it was Mayor Webb, and he's an authoritarian that controls all of New York with an iron fist. There's no more supervillains or superheroes. They've all been tamped down. He's got like a police force called Rain that controls everything. But Spider-Man decides to fight back. Oh, I guess that was it. I thought that, yeah, I guess that was it for that. Did any of you actually read Spider-Man Reign? I don't know if it was Mayor Web or if the mayor had a device called Web, because like there was a way that like New York was cut off from the rest of the world. It was 2006, so it's been a long time since I read it. Loved it. I think that Carrie Andrews is really good artist. I think it was an interesting story, but that part about like what happened to Mary Jane and how is just so dark and depressing. It's really dark and weird. It was a device called the Web. That's what, so what was the mayor's name? Sorry, it's been over a decade. I don't remember now. I could Google it, but you know, it doesn't really matter. Let's see. I think Mel's dissertation track is better than this story. I don't know about that. I know of the story. Yeah. The Web was the, yeah, I remember that he had a dome-like creation. I guess I had conflated it to think that like that was the mayor's name, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Oh, is he a buddy of yours? Yeah, he's definitely a really talented artist. And I think that, you know, I wouldn't speak for him, but I'm pretty sure he was intentionally doing making some choices with his artwork to make it look a bit reminiscent of how Frank Miller and Klaus Janson approached Dark Knight Returns. I think, you know, in many ways, he was trying to make a Dark Knight Returns for the Marvel Universe. And it's a decent story in that, like, you know, once Spider-Man comes back, the mayor puts together a version of the Sinister Six. I think they were called the Sinner Six. There was some good character moments in the story for J. Jonah Jameson, for Sandman, even for the Hypno Hustler. Hypno Hustler tries to come back. It doesn't go well. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, he was definitely going for a Dark Knight Returns vibe. That's cool. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I think it's worth reading. It's not something I'd recommend as like a perfect story, more like really interesting ideas. So I'm a little conflicted as to where I'd fall on like wanting a sequel to it. Because I have to admit, I don't know. I didn't love any of the Dark Knight Returns sequels that Frank Miller did. I loved anything Frank Miller did all the way through the 80s. I guess even a little into the 90s, because I loved Sin City and 300 and stuff. And then there was sort of like a turning point where I just didn't love the sequel type stuff. That's an interesting observation. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Charles Vest did some gorgeous painted covers for Spider-Man back in the day. Really, really good. You thought it was amazing and ridiculous. A self-serious parody that played it straight on purpose for the bit. Maybe. I'd have to reread it. It's been a long time. I'd have to reread it. Let's see. Is Spidey carrying MJ or pulling off a wig here? Yeah, an excellent question. I don't know. In the original Reign comic, Spider-Man is in a pose sort of like this and holding Mary Jane's tombstone and crying. And here he seems to have her on his back, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what that implies. Maybe it implies a happy ending of some sort. I mean, we're living in a world where Spider-Man has things like, you know, clones and stuff. So who knows? Who knows? Spider-Woman is getting a bit of a comic book reboot. We were given this preview page in a recent Amazing Spider-Man, sort of showing the new direction that they're going to take the comic in. It's a decent direction, I think. So specifically, Marvel announced that Spider-Woman's going to get a new series starting on November 29th, not too far away. It's going to be written by Steve Fox, drawn by Carola Borelli. And by the way, have you guys noticed just how many Italian artists have made their way into American comics? It feels like we've gotten an Italian surge in the last several years. And that's not a bad thing at all. But I think it's a cool thing, to be honest. But it's definitely a thing. And it's going to follow out of the upcoming Spider-Man Gang Wars story. Not super interested in that, but we'll see. And here's the premise. Jessica Drew is going to be searching for her baby, which has been kidnapped by Hydra. Okay. That gives me vibes of things like, Taken and stuff like that. Like, a revenge track down the bad guys story. That could be interesting. That could be really interesting. I don't know. I don't know if it'll work with Spider-Woman or not. But Steve Fox has definitely written some pretty good stuff, so it's possible. Yeah, a little bit of an Italian invasion. But, I see them elsewhere, too. There's a lot of, Italian artists doing stuff at, say, Image. I mean, I know that, like, Rick Remender has worked with several different great Italian artists. I don't know. I would hope that I have no idea how Marvel pays talent overseas. I would hope that there are certain minimums that they would honor no matter what country you're working out of. And it might go further in other countries, the money, depending on economies. I hope that they don't pay less than minimum wage essentially just because somebody is in another country. Jessica Drew has a particular set of skills. Technically, she does. Jessica Drew has a very complex background. She does have ties to Hydra originally. Back when she had no hair coming out of her costume, it was like a bald cap, skull cap cowl. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Italy has a fantastic comics market. I'll tell you something. There's a guy in our chat right now. Some of you guys know Jim Mahfood that got to go to this beautiful Lake Como Comics Art Festival. And, wow. First of all, to go to Lake Como sounds fantastic. And the fact that it was sort of comics focused, that they could justify that there's that kind of interest in Italy, that's awesome. I would really like to go to that one. I never knew about it before Jim posted some pictures of it. Looks like one of the most gorgeous places on earth, I have to say. You like the Marie Severin design for Jessica Drew? Marie Severin probably deserves an episode on my show at some point. She's great. I've talked about her in different things, but never a dedicated episode. Great colorist, but also a very, very good artist. She had a great run on Hulk. Really great run on Hulk. Yeah, don't base your idea of Italy off of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't think that makes sense. Sergio Bonelli puts so many great artists. Yeah, Bonelli has definitely produced a lot of great comics and comics artists over the years. Como, hot damn, it's paradise on earth. Can't recommend visiting there enough. So there you have it. There you have it. What else we got? A lot of Marvel news this week. It's just how things shook out. But I guess they're introducing a new Sentry, or maybe Sentries, as this image sort of hints at. So specifically, Sentry is almost like an even more powerful version of Superman at Marvel. Human identity, Bob Reynolds. He had a power of 1 million exploding suns. But also he had this dark side called the Void that wanted to cover the entire universe in darkness. And the more he accessed Sentry's abilities, the more the Void would usually come back. And the best Sentry issues were probably where it was a bit of a psychological drama, that it was dangerous if he used these abilities. But they did kill him off back in the King in Black event, and that makes sense because A, he's really overpowered, And B, Marvel already has several sort of Superman stand-ins. I mean, Hyperion for one. But there's a new 4-issue series coming. Writer Jason Liu, artist Luigi Zagaria. That to me sounds like another Italian artist, but I don't know that for a fact. I'm not familiar with Luigi's work. And what happens in this is ordinary folks around the world start finding themselves with Sentry's powers. That sounds like not a great idea for the world if all of a sudden random people started getting Superman level powers. I kind of agree with Black Phoenix on this one, to be honest. Yeah, the first Sentry miniseries was amazing. It was a really interesting idea, and they've never gotten him right since then. The only thing that annoyed me when they first introduced Sentry is that Marvel put on this hoax, and I don't blame Marvel for it. It was good marketing, but I don't like that Wizard, the Guide to Comics, treated it like it was real news. What they said was that Sentry was like a forgotten idea by, it was Stan Lee, and for the artist, they chose like, not like, you know, Kirby or Ditko, that would have been too obvious, but they said something like maybe Don Heck or somebody like that, maybe like Larry Lieber, you know, sort of one of their other guys that like worked in the bullpen. And they said that they had this idea for Sentry, but he'd been forgotten and never published, and they were going to bring back the idea. But that was really all just weird marketing, because what Sentry did was so that like people wouldn't be threatened by the Void, you know, his sort of dark side. He made everybody forget that the Sentry existed, including himself. But supposedly he had been around throughout Marvel's history, and it's just people forgot about him. It was an interesting idea. It really was. I didn't read Jeff Lemire's run, but I do like a lot of what Jeff Lemire comes up with. Haven't been reading it, Eric, so I guess I don't have an opinion on that. Let me know if it's great. Oh, you know what, Rocket Reindeer? If it was Artie, then they probably meant Artie Simek, who was mostly a letterer. But that does make sense. Yeah, I bet that they said that it was Artie Simek and Stan Lee that came up with the idea. Yeah, Sentry and Hulk were best friends. Supposedly, Sentry was like the only person that could calm Hulk down. He was also really good friends with the Fantastic Four. It was interesting. It was interesting. But this makes me wonder a little if this could have been thought ahead. For instance, if they're creating somebody new to have Sentry's powers, we have heard rumors that Sentry could be in the upcoming Thunderbolts movie. Maybe it's like a new version of Sentry. I don't know. Yes, Tari, I actually do a quick review of the movie at the end of my latest Comic Tropes video, which is about some comics, but then during the credits, I talk about spoiler-free movie review of Mutant Mayhem. And short version is, excuse me, I liked it a lot, and I really want to see it a second time in the theater. Let's see. I thought they used Artie Simek's first name and another guy's last name, unless I'm thinking of a different joke. If they did, then all I can think is like Artie Rosen, because like there was another letterer named Rosen, but like I'm really pushing my memory here without having looked it up. I don't know. We could Google it. Like, if you just like, in fact, look up probably the Wikipedia article for Sentry, they'll talk about what they did for the marketing, because that was one of the more interesting aspects of how they promoted it. I have not watched Spider-Man Lotus. Is it up now? I think it is up now. I don't know if I'm going to see that. Maybe out of curiosity to talk about on the show, but that movie is cursed. That fan film is cursed. Oh, yeah, the one last piece that I almost forgot to mention. And I love this idea. This part of it actually interests me a lot. So there's these new people with Sentry powers popping up around the world. Somebody has to investigate it. And I love who they chose for this. Misty Knight and Colleen Wing. I love the Daughters of the Dragon. I think they're one of the best duos Marvel has. I don't quite know why they're never super popular, because I think that they're both really interesting characters. And I love the idea of two female superheroes who are basically just best friends and detectives going around solving things on their own. I think that they're both fantastic characters. I really do. I would love to see more Misty Knight and Colleen Wing stuff. Marvel finally got around to honoring John Romita Sr. He passed away, obviously, a couple months back. Very sad, super important creator in comic book history, and really somebody that Marvel benefited from. Just a fantastic, fantastic artist, and apparently a really nice person. Some of the stuff that they did here includes they put this little, what do you call it, corner box art on any of the titles that were Spider-Man related, Guardians of the Galaxy related, because he had a hand in that, and Avengers related, because he drew some Avengers stuff too. So yeah, and then they have like a couple pages that are a tribute to him with quotes by some of the important executives and long-term employees that are still at Marvel, talking about, just how great John Romita Sr. was. Oops, I thought that there was more, but so let me jump back actually. Yeah, okay, so I didn't have any more. But yeah, I did love that they used this corner box art of his iconic Spider-Man No More cover. And they because boy, isn't that pretty impressive piece of artwork that even at this tiny sort of image, we can kind of recognize that, I think. I think even simplifying the colors and everything here to just Spider-Man all in red and Peter mostly in blue, but you can see his head slumped down and Spider-Man's turned his back. They're back to back. I don't know. It's a very iconic cover for a lot of reasons. I think that a really good cover, you can shrink quite a bit and still distill some sort of emotional response or sort of make sense of the image that you're seeing. So I think that one stands the test of time for a reason. It's a really good cover. Really good cover. But yeah. He worked a long, long time, and he gave us a lot of great art that we're very lucky to have. Co-created a lot of amazing characters, redesigned Black Widow to her current look. That's an iconic look. I think that if he hadn't redesigned Black Widow to have, the skin tight black outfit, I think that character would have been forgotten. I'm serious. There are certain people that are just really associated with a company, and if that company doesn't do a tribute to them, it feels weird. So it's nice that they got around to that. It's nice. That's somebody I really wish I could have met at some point. That would have been nice. That would have been interesting. Oh well. There's going to be a comic book to benefit all the striking writers and actors. Although the latest news is that the unions and the studios are agreeing to sit down and negotiate again for, I think, the actors. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the actors are the ones that are about to sit down. So maybe some of this will move on soon. That would be nice. But what are we talking about with this? This is the cover, I guess, for it. It's by Black Mask Studios, run by Matteo Pizzolo. They're publishing an anthology to benefit the various striking writers and actors. How are they doing that? Well, first of all, the stories will all be written by WGA, Writers Guild of America members, and Black Mask is going to match the writers' fees with donations to the Entertainment Community Fund. That's a fund for people in the entertainment industry that are falling on tough economic times. They can apply to get, basically, it's not a loan if you don't have to return the money. Just get some money if they need it. So yeah, they'd pay the writers whatever they're going to pay them, and then they'd cut a check for that same amount to the Entertainment Community Fund. Where is this all going to come from? It's going to be a Kickstarter, just to be clear, which is launching tomorrow. So August 15th. I don't know. I haven't looked at it too closely to see if there are creators in there that I really love, but I like the idea of it. It's always nice when people take a step to try to help people that that do entertainment for a living. They don't all get rich off it. That's for sure. They don't all get rich. Would it be called a grant? It might be. It might be. Oh, good coffee. I'm pumped. What else we got? IDW canceled their creator-owned comics line. Now, let me be clear here. IDW, I guess, owns Top Shelf, and I don't think that it's affecting anything indie-wise that Top Shelf publishes, because that's sort of all creator-owned. But they had announced there was going to be some creator-owned stuff, stuff along the lines of, Scott Snyder's Dark Places, Wildfire, things like that. But like a bunch of people posted this week, Will Robson, Skylar Partridge, talking about how, unfortunately, their books at IDW have actually been canceled. Not Top Chef, Top Shelf, as in we put our comics on shelves. The best ones go on the top shelf. Anyway, so they announced the cancellation, and Bleeding Cool reported on this. They usually have better connections with industry pros than certainly I do. They were told that IDW felt that they had just too many books, too many comic titles on their books to be published. And they just felt like they weren't going to be able to publish them all and promote them all. There was more than they can currently handle. I mean, keep in mind, it was only several months ago that they let off 2/5 of their staff. So they downsized a lot. It looks like their Ninja Turtles and Star Trek books do really well. And I think that they're just going to stick with focusing primarily on their licensed stuff. So what they've done, though, is they've given the rights to the original creators so that they can shop it around. You could crowdfund, you could find a different publisher. It's too bad that so many of these people had their hopes up that their book was about to, get published. Somebody was going to handle all that and it was going to get out there in the world. I'm sure that is, emotionally a bit of a hit, like when you've already sort of agreed to terms and then just told it's not happening. So it's too bad. Yeah, I would guess it could definitely have something to do with not enough capital to publish so many different books. And yeah, John is saying not surprised. Nope, IDW does not. G.I. Joe comic rights are with Skybound, Robert Kirkman's imprint at Image. I don't know that it's scummy. It's more just it's too bad that it happened. I mean, it would be scummy if they said, we have no plans to publish them, but we're not releasing the rights back to the creators. They gave the rights back to the creators. It's just, I think it's a shame. I think it would have also been long-term a very good idea for IDW, because I really think you need to diversify your risk. If you're doing licensed books, cool, those can sell well. If you lose the license, that's a big hit. Whereas if you own something, and can reprint it, and help develop it into other properties, that gives you a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, so that's what's happening with IDW and their creator-owned stuff. It's not happening there. I guess all we can do is hope that if these projects were good enough to be picked up once by a company, probably there's another company out there that would be willing to pick them up. Here's just an idea that I thought sounded like smart marketing. I have not read, I don't think, any Mad Cave titles, so I'm not an expert on Mad Cave Studios, but they're coming up with an incentive for comic book shops where they will sell the books to the store for 50 cents, and then the store can sell them for the normal price. So yeah, 50 cents. That gives a comic book store a pretty healthy margin. It probably helps Mad Cave unload some, like warehouse inventory that, they need to move a little faster. So that it makes sense. But a couple of their books, I know for a fact, do sell well, including on the secondary market. So like Nottingham, I've heard of. I haven't read it, but I know that if you try to get the back issues right now, they go for maybe up to $10 on eBay and places like that. Or in a comic store, you might pay up to $10. But Mad Cave still has these things available to sell to retailers for 50 cents a pop. Some of the titles I know I've heard of, there were a lot of them. These are just ones I'd heard of. Nottingham, Legacy of Violence, Battle Cats. I'd heard of all those. I just haven't read them. The last issue of the Mark Miller book was double size. So it went from $1.99 to $3.99. It was double size, though. I didn't know they had one, but Barry says, I entered this year's Mad Cave Studios talent search. Now nervously awaiting an email. Nottingham is so good. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that it's popular. I haven't read it, but I know that it's sold well. What this indicates to me is that a bunch of comic shops may now take a chance on something new and introduce it to readers. If one of my local comic shops buys these books and I see them, I would now pick them up. Good. Yeah, look at how this is why I love doing this show. Like how positive you guys are. Like people just wishing Barry good luck. That's really, really nice. No. Battle Cats is something else. You're thinking of Battle Chasers. That's still at it through Image. Battle Chasers. So here's some big news. Editor Tom Brevoort is taking over X-Men as the editor-in-chief of the X-Men titles. There's a lot to unpack here. This is a big deal, though. This is a big deal. Tom hinted at this, first of all, with a post last week to his Substack, saying that Dan Buckley, the Marvel Comics publisher, had asked him to move to take over something new, but he hadn't announced last week what that was. So I didn't report on it. But let me explain what this means and why it's big news. So we're going to start. I'm going to go ahead and read Tom Brevoort's post. He posted it this past week to his Facebook page. He goes, okay, so there's been a bunch of chatter this past week concerning the secret mission that Dan Buckley spoke with me about that got mentioned in my newsletter. Some of it pretty funny. No, I am not becoming editor-in-chief. That's hardly a thing we'd announce in a newsletter, guys. CB is welcome to the position. It suits him, and he's good at it. No, the big story is that after a quarter of a century editing Avengers and its associated titles, I am going to be moving away from those characters and titles and instead stepping into the world of mutants. Yes, that's right. I'm afraid that it's true. I'm the X. This isn't going to happen for a good long while yet. I still have a ton of stuff cooking in Avengers, including next year's big crossover event series that needs to be seen to completion. And at the same time, current ex-guru Jordan White and his team have a massive story that they're in the middle of and that won't run its course for a long while. What I do will grow directly out of what they're doing, provided they leave me anything to work with. Did you read the Hellfire Gala book? Cripes. A lot of mutants were killed. When we're closer to the switchover happening and there's something worth reporting on, you'll hear more from us. For now, I'm still trying to figure out which one is Professor X. Haha. So that's it. A big change, but not really that big of a change. Appreciate you all for reaching out. I'm excited for what's to come. So let's talk about what this means. First of all, if you're not familiar, Tom Brevoort is Marvel's longest-serving employee, and he has been the Avengers editor, as he referred to in this, throughout Marvel's big push. Think about that. Like when Marvel was gearing up to make their Avengers movies and build up to the Avengers movies and stuff, this was the guy that was editing those books to make sure that they were like selling well and coming up with exciting stories and stuff like that, could turn into movies and hopefully also just sell lots of comics. Oh, wow. Hold on. I got a super chat. Thank you, Rebellious Monkey. I remember I told you I'm making a Spidey fanfic comic, but while I do that, I want to be able to send you not just fan art of the show, but my artwork and see what your thoughts are on it. Well, that's kind of you. You can always shoot something to the comictropes@gmail.com. I can't promise that I have time to give my thoughts on everything that's sent to me. I want to level set there. I get sent a lot of stuff, folks, a lot. And, just people with comments about the show or questions, people sending in artwork, people asking for interviews or asking me to promote their comic, people asking for brand deals. It's a lot. So I don't always, I definitely can't promise that just by sending in art that I'll have time to look at it, think up a coherent response. If I do, I will. But I just want to level set. I'd still be curious to see it. I promise I'm always going to take a look at it. I just don't always have time to sit down and write out extra stuff. No, I didn't. I didn't do that, did I? All right, let's go back to Tom Brevoort and who he is and what a big deal this is. What I'm curious about is this. Tom Brevoort has obviously overseen the Avengers and Avengers-related titles for quite a while now, and has, by all accounts, done a great job building the Avengers into. I think you'd have to argue that, like, right after Spider-Man, the Avengers are currently Marvel's premier property for comics. There's been a long, long time where the Avengers was mid-tier for Marvel. The stuff that sold was X-Men, Spider-Man, Punisher, Ghost Rider, things like that. A lot of X titles, a lot of Spider-Man titles. The X-Men has obviously been building the last few years, but it's not quite as popular as it was for like the 80s and 90s. Or really the 70s through the 90s. I feel like Tom is the best editor that Marvel has. Everybody seems to like him that works with him, has nice things to say about him. And I think he knows the characters very well. I don't think he tends to do too much that like really drives fans up the wall. So I think he's probably a really good choice to put on the X-Men titles. It seems to me that means Marvel's getting ready to start pushing the X-Men, which probably in a business sense means that they're getting ready down a few years down the road to then start adapting them into the movies. That's my opinion. Just looking at it as a very cynical business goal, because they're always planning several years ahead. Did Tom Brevoort work on Spider-Man as well? Yeah, he's worked on everything at this point. I want to say that Tom may have been an assistant editor of some sort back in the 90s on the Spidey books, but I'd have to look at his whole bibliography to know for sure. But thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's talk about that a little. Are you the only one that loves the Krakoa era? No, I think a lot of people love the Krakoa era. I love the Krakoa era. I haven't read every related book, but I like what Jonathan Hickman set up. The only thing is, it's clearly winding down. And I think a lot of people would have loved for the Krakoa era to stick around because they like the idea of united mutants on an island. It is an interesting idea. But I'm pretty sure that Hickman always intended for it to fall apart, because to me, from the beginning, it looked like the idea of putting together all the mutants together, it was giving them too much power. And the theme, I think the theme of the Krakoa age was that power corrupts, whether you're a good person or not. It's not through it's not that it like makes you intentionally evil, but I do think that the X-Men were becoming ridiculously powerful in terms of how they could affect their world. and that like it was always going to fall apart just on a sort of story arc journey. I think that the goal was to show the X-Men, get more and more power, and for eventually that to collapse and to like start something new. Whoops, hold on. Tom is editor on your Ultraman covers. Oh, great. So you've worked with him. I know that when I did an interview with Kirkman on Comic Tropes a couple years ago, that Robert said, he didn't love his time at Marvel, but that he loved working with Tom Brevoort. He only had good things to say about Tom, so that was nice. I think that House of X, Powers of 10, that's a great, great storyline. It's a great sci-fi reset of the X-Men ideas. Instead of just them being the persecuted minority, it's saying like, what if humanity was evolving, but not everybody was evolving? That would definitely lead to sort of class warfare, essentially. And I could be wrong, but I really do think that like the Krakoa era, by its very nature of what they were doing, was always designed to ultimately fail. You could argue that, but I do think that it was doomed. I bet you that they will keep Arakko. I bet you that they will. No, that's my least favorite part of the Krakoa era, is that they turned Moira evil. Turning her retroactively into a mutant that reincarnates, that fit and was really, really interesting. Having her sort of play a gray area where she's not necessarily like, a complete ally, she's just trying to find her best path forward potentially, is also interesting. But turning her into like an evil robot thing or cyborg, I didn't love it. Yeah, you would start reading the House of X Powers of 10 compilation. What was that? 12 issues altogether? It's available in one trade paperback. Jonathan Hickman wrote it. House of X Powers of 10. That's where you'd start. Like I said, I haven't been reading all the X-Men titles, so I don't know exactly what they've done, but yeah, I've heard that they've turned Beast evil. Look, here's the other thing. The Krakoa era allows the X-Men to, they call it reincarnate. When they die, a cloned body is created and a backup of their memories up to a certain point is put in that body. I sincerely don't feel like that's really reincarnation, that's just creating a clone. I hope at some point they sort of find a workaround to just sort of like address that somehow, to say that like, I don't know, maybe there's a mutant that can just guide souls. You know what I mean? Just something like that. But yeah, I've heard Beast has become very evil. I don't love it when like long time superheroes become just flat out evil. Beast was like the fun-loving Avenger, Him and Wonder Man are best friends. It's not. I don't love that. I guess it can make sense because they haven't like just done it overnight. It's been a long time coming. I think that sort of Brian Michael Bendis really got the ball rolling on Beast being morally unethical when he brought back the young X-Men into the future, but still. Kyle says he likes the Wolverine versus Beast stuff. They call it resurrection, not reincarnation. Yeah. It's very weird. It's very weird. Very weird. Anyway, a lot of stuff going on with the X-Men. This one will probably drive some people nuts. But Across the Spider-Verse, it came out digitally. I don't think it's available on like Blu-ray and DVD yet. But here's the thing. They've made changes from the theatrical version. The theatrical version was pretty acclaimed, but they've made changes. We found out, first of all, that there were multiple versions in the theater. Tiny little things. There were like things were like scenes were just a tiny bit different here and there, like a reaction or something. But now there's tons of changes apparently in this new digital version. I just have a small handful of them. In the original, Spot, the villain Spot, talked about his origin, and in the movie theater, he said it pretty angrily and stuff. And in this new one, he's very calm and chill in his delivery. It's a completely different line reading by Jason Schwartzman. There's a time in the movie where Miles discovers something about Gwen Stacy's mission, and there's like a comic book text box that pops over his head saying like, what? Because he doesn't say it out loud, but it's what he's thinking. They've eliminated that text box now. There was some voiceover in a scene where Miles is covered in some rubble in Mumbattan. And now they've just eliminated that voiceover. Like when Gwen originally was like, oh, no. Now she doesn't say anything. Then there's this, like this is kind of small too, but like basically the version of this alternate version of Miles that appeared in the original had his hair like pulled back with braids. Now the hair is sort of like styled forward, and he's got like harsher lines, more angular lines on his face. So here's what I'm thinking. Yes, they might say that it's a movie about the multiverse, so we've got several little iterations and stuff. Maybe, but we also know that like the animators were really overworked and they were working on this up until the last minute. I think that they just never locked the picture in. That's what I think. I think that they were still making edits even after they basically released the version in the theater, which we all ended up liking for the most part. But I think that like the director and producers are basically still making edits to it. And I don't love that. I feel like a picture at some point should be locked in. I'm not a fan of things like the George Lucas special editions of Star Wars. I don't prefer them at all to the original movies. I don't mind a director's cut here and there as sort of like an alternate take, but I just don't like it when a movie continues to evolve. I don't like it. I've got a top secret thing I'm doing for the third Spidey movie out next year. Stay tuned, true believers. Well, I remember seeing some of your designs for Spider-Punk for the second one. I'm glad that you're involved, Jim. I think that the movies are coming out great, but I'm a little frustrated to see these little edits. I saw a version I liked. I want to be able to see it again. I don't love seeing one and I'm like, oh, is that what happened? I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it. I'm with you, Chris. At a certain point, the movie belongs to the public. Yeah, I think so. I hear what you're saying. But I'm happy for you, Jim, that you're working on that. And I'm happy for the movie. I think, I also think, I think the movie's lucky to have guys like you. And honestly, Jason Latour has some really great ideas on who Spider-Gwen is. He's also great at like designs. I think that the movie has worked with some great comic book artists for the look of the movie. I'm really happy that they did that and are doing that. But I just I want the movie to sort of be locked. I don't love it. Seems like it could be an Easter egg, like, haha, cool. They've got like a couple different versions. For me, for some reason, it just doesn't, it rubs me the wrong way. It makes it feel unfinished to me. And I want a movie to be finished. Maybe I'm being weird there. Maybe I'm the one that doesn't enjoy this and everybody else does. Maybe. But I don't love it. Hopefully, they don't continue to do changes where it actually changes character motivation drastically. We'll see. The Blu-ray should have all the versions, at least of the scenes, changed. That's fine with me. If they want to like have either different versions you can pull up or the theatrical version with the extra bonus scenes, that's interesting to me. I like that. But yeah. Yeah, that one really drove me nuts, a roguish type. It makes it feel like she's not as connected emotionally with Miles in this new, when I watched the new clip of her just like running to unbury him, but not saying anything, like not really worried. I was like, oh, he's like a friend, but like, that's it. I don't know. I like that emotional line reading there. We'll see what happens when the physical media comes out. A statue, I call it a Tintin statue. Just to be clear, it's technically a statue of Hergé. I should have said Hergé. Statue disappears. Did a video, obviously, fairly recently about Hergé and Tintin. If you haven't seen it, that's on Comic Tropes. In his hometown, there's this bust of creator Hergé in a glass case. Okay, so what happened? This is in Etterbeek, the place where he grew up originally, in Brussels, in Belgium. The town has said that it has been removed because the glass box that protects it was damaged. But there's a little bit more to it than this. Oh, that's too good of a pun to pass. Hergé today, gone tomorrow. That should have been my episode title. That's pretty damn good. That's pretty damn good. I'd hate to feel like there were tons of things I missed from the different versions. I guess that's, yeah, there's sort of a fear of missing out to this, to the last news article. There's some FOMO there where I'm like, that's cool, but is that the take that I like the most? I don't want to be thinking about FOMO. I want to just enjoy a story. That's all I want to think about. So the town said that they removed it because the glass box was damaged. So a lot of people are speculating, why was the glass box damaged? It's low to the ground. Anybody can come up to it. It's so that little kids can see it, as well as, they don't want to have it like inaccessible. A lot of people think that it's an act of decolonization, which is a real thing happening across Europe and definitely in Belgium. Because, to be clear, Belgium claimed Congo in Africa as theirs back in 1885. And for the next 20 years or so, over 10 million Congolese were either murdered or worked to death. It was a brutal colonization. Brutal. It's a very unpleasant bit of history. And a lot of people don't want to remember that bit of history. Why are they taking out on Hergé? Because one of the first Tintin comics is Tintin in the Congo, and it is very dated, or very of its era, where the Congolese people are presented as very lazy and dumb. Anyway, Tintin in the case of the missing head. Anyway, so you love Belgium waffles? I think you mean Belgian waffles, but yes. However horrific you think the Congo occupation was, it was worse. It's bad. It's a really unpleasant part of history. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I can say like America's great because, we did horrible things and committed acts of genocide on Native American people. Our country did. I didn't do it, thank God. Nobody that I know claims to have done that stuff, but it's a part of the history of the world. But it's understandable that it upsets some people. I don't think that it's worth destroying this bust. I think that Tintin is a very good comic. A couple of the things are dated and of its era, and they're not perfect. But I don't think that we should erase that. I really don't. And I think that it's nice to have a bust of an important artist that the town can be proud of, like that came from there, that everybody can see. So I hope that they are able to reinstall it, basically. And who knows? Like, there's always a chance that it's not decolonialization, that it was just, some kids being jerks. I don't know. But, yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah. King Leopold is worse than Hitler. Leopold II, I believe, was the king of Belgium that claimed the Congo as theirs. Isn't that amazing too, though, that like Belgium is not a humongous country, and it's so far away from the Congo. It's just amazing that they had the power to enslave a country. It's crazy bit of history. Crazy bit of history. I need to read more Asterix. I need to read more. The character of Duggan from City of Death was modeled on Tintin? Huh. I'll have to go back and watch that. I love City of Death. That's one of the best Doctor Who stories. Fantastic. Fantastic. I think that Hergé basically was not a very political person, to be honest. I do think that he did try to make up for his mistakes and try to be a more worldly person and more educated. You know, he made best friends with a fellow student from China, and he made real efforts to be accurate to culture and sensitivity and stuff as he moved on. And he went back and edited his old comics to remove some of the stuff that had aged poorly. So I do think he made efforts to improve. But he also did make some, mistakes along the way. That's for sure. I don't think ignorance is a great defense, but I'm glad that he did make a lot of efforts to improve. I do think he did. Here's some potential nice closure to a story that we had a couple weeks ago. There was a store in Colorado that got broken into. You may remember there was some black and white footage of a guy who had broken a window, the lower half of the door, and climbed in and done a snatch and grab. Well, that thief has been apprehended, apparently. Gentleman named James Ware, according to the news in Colorado, from Boulder, Colorado, has been arrested for stealing $14,000 worth of comics from Time Warp Comics. And this is the owner of Time Warp Comics looking at the, the glass case that was broken into. And it had a bunch of valuable early comics in here that were stolen. So the thief faces multiple charges: second-degree burglary, theft, criminal mischief, and violations of a protective order. So I guess this isn't his first rodeo. Wait, what's that? No way, I've been to Time Warp, such a cool store. Mm-hmm. Yeah, felony numbers, exactly. So basically, 7 of the missing comics have been acknowledged as being purchased by Kapow Comics and Coffee in Colorado Springs, and the store owner expressed to the news that he was willing to return them. Here's where it gets a little confusing, though. I also saw reports that 10 of the comics were found there, and I only saw the store owner saying 7, so that's a little bit of a discrepancy. And I also saw one of the employees at Kapow Comics and Coffee admitted that they already sold one of the comics. So how do you make the restitution right there? I don't know. It gets very confusing there, But how did this I try to spread this news in case somebody knows. It doesn't look like my show helped in this case, but something similar happened. A Time Warp Comics customer named Rita Rollman was spreading the word to all the local comic book stores and friends and stuff like that. And that's how somebody at Kapow Comics realized that they had purchased the alleged stolen comics. I mean, I guess you could put comics in a safe, but you can't take them in and out every day. I don't think anybody could take all your valuable stuff in and out of a safe every day. That's not very realistic. I think you need to just have good security for the store, which may unfortunately include a door or bars that people can't break through. They had cameras. Looks like the guy has been caught. This is tricky. There were apparently, in some of the news reports, they said that the alleged thief had potentially stolen some other comics. So yeah. So I would hope that they had some sort of insurance on them. I would hope if you're running a store that you know that much. I bet that they did. I would assume that they did anyway by default. But I am also sure that both the insurance company and the store owner would probably prefer to have the actual comics back as compared to the insurance, because insurance might sort of lowball you, and they probably don't want to pay anything out if they don't have to. They want to just help get the stuff back. So we'll see. They should glue big trackers to the inside pages of the comics. Well, I will say that, you probably could put things like some sort of an Apple tracker inside a slabbed comic, but then again, they could always crack that open and that wouldn't change anything. So I guess that wouldn't work now that I think of it. Yeah, a criminal would just crack it open. So never mind. I think that the owner was very bummed. Yes, I'm sure he did not have to act for that photo. Well, I mean, they did have security. Like, the doors were locked and they had cameras. So, I think that they had some reasonable measures in place. It also depends on the environment. I don't know. The comics are definitely not in their original condition before they were stolen. Well, I don't know that we know that. I didn't see anything to that effect. My understanding is what was stolen was all slabbed. It might still be. But I don't know. I couldn't find any more news other than what I'm sharing here, really. The good news is it looks like the criminal was apprehended. That starts the process towards restitution and punishment or rehabilitation. That's all we can do, right? Was Gal Gadot wrong about being in a Wonder Woman 3? We had news just last week where she's like, yeah, I talked to James Gunn and Peter Safran, and they told me they want to work with me developing a Wonder Woman 3. And a lot of industry sources were like, what? That doesn't really seem to make sense that you'd be rebooting things and keeping her. Well, both Variety and Deadline looked into that. Those are both Hollywood new trade papers. And they cited anonymous sources at the studios telling them that there are no plans for a third film with Gal Gadot. So, was she lying or was she mistaken? I don't know. All that they could confirm is that there's no current plans for a Wonder Woman movie or a TV show, except for the already announced HBO show Paradise Lost, which is a prequel set way in the past about Themyscira, Paradise Island. I'll be honest, I don't think she lied. I think she might have misinterpreted things. Like that maybe they were like, oh yeah, we'd love your input on like, a Wonder Woman someday. And she was like, oh, they mean that they're making another Wonder Woman with me. I don't know. Here's the thing though. Alternately, maybe the studios lied to her, because they did get her to do cameos just in Shazam and Flash. Maybe they were like, oh yeah, you should do these cameos for us, and maybe we can do a third movie after all. I don't know. That would probably been separate from what James Gunn and Peter Safran are planning, but there could be studio executives that could have told her something like that. Thanks for watching, ChemDog. I appreciate it. I don't know what to make of it, but yeah. Publishers have announced their Trick or Read comics. That's basically just free comic book day for Halloween. And we talked before about some of the stuff Marvel was publishing, but several other publishers have shared what they're going to sell to stores really inexpensively that stores can give away for free. Dark Horse, first of all, is going to give away the first issue of Blue Book. I recommend that. It's by James Tynion and Michael Avon Oeming. Really interesting book about real life people who claim to have been abducted by aliens. It's interesting. It's really cool. Whether they're right or not, I think that they believe that something happened to them, and the story is pretty interesting. IDW has said that they will print Dark Spaces Wildfire, at least issue 1. That was really good. And a book I hadn't heard of called Cooking with Monsters Feast Tieri. I said before that, yeah, Marvel is doing a Captain Marvel book, an Amazing Spider-Man book, a bunch of Star Wars books, including Attack of the Huts, a Moon Knight book, and Spidey and His Amazing Friends. Marvel's publishing a lot of stuff. And Kodansha is getting in on the act, publishing 2 manga that I think have 2 different manga in each of the 2 issues, just to be clear. But I know that Witch Hat at Atelier, I always mispronounce that, and Origin. Witch Hat Atelier, if you haven't read it, is a very charming, really great manga. Really, really nice. Oh, and as long as I'm promoting stuff, I got to say, the Dark Spaces Wildfire book is a great heist book involving criminals fighting a fire in the forest, and then like trying to make off with a heist for like one of the houses that's like in the line of fire. Great premise, really cool execution, really, really cool. Last bit of news. Is Tom Cruise going to join the MCU? Can we get some toast? Is an industry insider that is typically pretty accurate with their Hollywood Inside info. And they said, like many, Tom Cruise as Superior Iron Man was one of my favorite rumors. He would have nailed that version of Tony. I heard they're still planning on using him sometime in the future. Supposedly, Marvel had approached Tom Cruise about doing that in the past. It didn't quite come together then, but that they're still looking into it. The current rumor is that Marvel is trying to get Tom Cruise to play a variant Tony Stark for Avengers 5 and 6. If you don't know, Superior Iron Man is basically an evil version of Tony Stark. There was this event called Axis. Long and short of it is, at the end of it, a bunch of characters' personalities got swapped from like good to evil and vice versa. So like, Sabretooth became good. Iron Man became evil. And if you didn't know, Tom Cruise was originally attached to play Iron Man back when the movie was being developed in the 90s at New Line Cinema before Marvel got the rights back. Who knows? I don't know. There's not going to be more Dark Spaces Wildfire, but there is more Dark Spaces and like different things within that theme by Scott Snyder. So yeah, it's going to be more, I guess. Don't think I ever read any of the issues with Carnage being good. Hobgoblin became good. I think Tom Cruise could play a version of Tony Stark just fine if it happens. I think it would work. I could see him being potentially interested too, because it probably would not be a humongous commitment if we're being realistic. But who knows? Who knows? That's what I've got for news of the week. I still would love to do some drawing and some comic book reviews, though. So let me move some things a little bit here so that I've got a slightly rejiggered area to show you. I've got my headphones hooked under my comics. Okay, I moved it. Hi! Let's do it like this. Yeah, and I'll move this over here. I've been reading a bunch of manga lately, and I just had a small opinion about why I think I'm getting into it so much. I still love plenty of comics from America, but there is a big difference. Vinland Saga is one I've been enjoying, and even though there's a good amount of like sort of text here and stuff, manga definitely tends to do a lot more sort of dialogue than like captions and stuff, which sometimes I do like captions to get inside somebody's head. But I kind of like that manga moves at a really brisk pace and doesn't seem to waste words. Like there can be action sequences sometimes where there's very little dialogue, and it kind of speeds things up. And all I'm saying there is that these are certainly comics that are created by artists first, people that are artists, as compared to people that are writers first. For instance, I love this book that came out this week, Barnstormers, issue 2. Tula, Lotay, great artwork. Scott Snyder, I like his ideas, I like his dialogue. But I'm reading this, and there's lots of these like caption boxes that are like kind of poetic and read very much like a novel. And that's not a bad thing at all. I'm not trying to say that. But I am saying that it like reads at a slower pace sometimes. Also not a bad thing. If you want your audience to read at a certain pace, make them do it. You know, be in control of your audience. But I tend to really like the pacing these days on some of these manga. The ones I've been enjoying, like this past week, I've gotten really into Kaiju number 8. I kept putting that one off because I do like big monsters and stuff. But I was like, a guy turns into a kaiju. I go, what's the appeal? Well, the appeal is there's actually a lot of likable and interesting characters in this world where Japan gets attacked sometimes by kaiju. There's a kaiju defense force. And the technology and ideas explored are really good. But like the really interesting stuff are the character interactions. The main character in this is Kafka Hibino. Let me show you what he looks like. Where's he? And he's treated like an old man because most of the people in the Japanese Defense Force are like anywhere between like 19 to maybe like later or mid 20s. They're really young because they basically can access the suit technology a little better and get like access to sort of enhanced strength. And he's a 32-year-old that flunked the first time he tried out for the Defense Force. And so he instead became part of a cleanup crew for past kaiju battles. But now he's decided, like, you know, it's his last year that he's eligible for joining at 32. And everyone calls him an old man. There's something I relate to there a little. I'm a little older than probably a lot of you guys that love comics. So I relate a little bit to that. Like, you know, but he's still part of the team. He's still part of the team. They call him old man, but you know, he earns their respect, even if he can't perform physically quite what they can. Anyway, there's a lot to like about it. So I do recommend it. Barnstormers it's actually a very romantic story about, you know, a guy that might be a little crazy and is like a pilot who has absconded with this young woman who comes from a poor farming family and agreed to marry this really rich guy from a family that like was always exploiting her family. And she was hoping to sort of break that cycle, but she doesn't love him and she's run off with this guy. It's a very romantic story. I'm really impressed. It's got a little bit of sci-fi. It's got a totally detestable villain, but this artwork is very, very beautiful. And I do find it a very charming romantic story and a romantic adventure. And it feels kind of doomed. It feels doomed. Like, even though they love each other and they keep sort of saving each other and staying one step ahead of some of these guys, I don't think it's going to end well. I don't. I think it's a doomed romance. Set in the past, back in the day, like the final days of people being really amazed by stunt flying. No, I mean, people are still impressed with stunt flying, but it's much safer and under much safer conditions now. Like back here, it was unregulated. It's really good. I think you guys would like it, no matter what kind of books you like. The other one that I really like this week is Damn Them All, which came back after a small break. Issue 7 takes place in a world where this woman was raised by her uncle to know all sorts of witchcraft and stuff. Okay, her uncle was about to die. He was a warlock along the lines of like a John Constantine, a real bastard. Doesn't hurt that they're also both British, so very similar to that. But when he realized he was going to hell, he cast a huge spell to banish the demons from hell so that when he went to hell, he knew he was going there, he wouldn't be tortured. But what he didn't realize that actually a lot of the people that end up in hell don't necessarily get tortured. And now all the demons are on Earth. Bad. So this woman is trying to correct his problems, and she's very good at magic in the sense that she knows that it takes sacrifice, that there's always like a price to be paid. She thinks of loopholes in clever ways. It's a great mix of crime and magic, but magic that has very well-defined rules, so it works. That can be the biggest problem with a magic story is, can a magician do anything? And it's like, this sort of shows what happens when people try to do something amazing. They might get to do that, but they're not always aware of what the price is that will be paid. And there's some really bad prices. Yeah, hell has bad PR. Great book. Look, if you have read Constantine, Hellblazer, and you loved it, you will like this. There are some similarities there. Main character is a little bit different, but the world is a little bit like Hellblazer. But that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing because it is its own complete story, and I really do like it. Also, I'll just briefly mention Red Danger Street issue 8. I think next issue is probably the finale. Crazy crime story involving all sorts of different aspects of DC continuity, like cops, the Creeper, mutants, Manhunter, the Green Team, the Dingbats of Danger Street, Warlord, Starman, the original Starman. Really bonkers book. Yeah. Really detestable villains in this. I got to give Tom King credit for some really detestable villains. Really detestable. I didn't love the last arc of House of Slaughter. That's sort of the anthology title set in the world of... who's Erica Slaughter's book? Something is Killing the Children. It always involves some people from like the various houses that hunt down these monsters. This one introduces this young child named Bait who doesn't have arms and barely talks, and the house sends him undercover on missions to literally become bait to bring a monster out into the open. But he's not a vulnerable kid. He's actually pretty dangerous. So yeah, there's a lot to find interesting about this. At first I thought it would be dumb, but it's not dumb. It's great. And it teaches us a lot about how this series of houses works, their history, and how they actually hunt monsters. They've got white masks, blue masks, crimson masks, blue masks. They each specialize in different things. And this talks about where those ideas came from and how they work together. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Maybe Danger Street is 10 issues, Phil. I don't know. I just feel that they're entering their end game. And the last new monthly comic that I picked up was issue 2 of Godzilla, Here There Be Dragons by writer Frank Tieri and artist Inaki Miranda. Set back in the days of pirates, but pirates versus Godzilla. Why does Godzilla exist back then instead of 1955? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. If you want to see the big G unleash his atomic breath on the Spanish Armada, this is where you can get that. Now, the only thing I have to say that I don't love about this is I like the voices of the main pirates in this, but I wish that there was a little bit more Godzilla. But that's the same complaint I have of every Godzilla movie. I love that stuff. Maybe it doesn't work if there's too much Godzilla. I don't know. So, as you can see, there's a lot of pages with just sort of pirate stuff, and going to an island that's basically Monster Island. Maybe it is Monster Island. It's cool though. It's a cool idea. It's a good execution. The artwork is solid. Like I say, let me show you some of the level of detail there. I mean, you think it's easy to draw the Spanish Armada? I don't. I don't think it's easy to draw all these ships. To draw Godzilla and have him actually look accurate, that's not easy. It really isn't. Anyway, let me do a little inking, and I'll just sort of take some questions if you folks have any. like I said, I just sketched out this little bit of I'm gonna move things actually. Hold on. I sketched out a Leonardo. I usually draw Donatello, but I was like, you know what? I love Ninja Turtles. I should draw a different Ninja Turtle for once. Let me move this a tiny bit. Yeah, that's better for me. If Danger Street is 12 issues, I'm a little surprised just because that's a lot of story left and it feels like we're entering an end game here. But maybe. For this, I was like, you know what? What about drawing a Ninja Turtle in an exciting pose that isn't like jumping towards you and isn't even looking at the front, is looking at them from behind. And so, you know, I needed to get some good reference so that I could draw a turtle shell well. But that seems like a fun challenge. That's all. How many of you have gone out and seen Mutant Madness? Because I do recommend it. I think it's a really great movie in general and a great Ninja Turtles movie specifically. I think you'll like it. It was a fun watch. Draw my mutant OC. Yeah, just go ahead and ask. You don't need permission. In Godzilla -1, it's hinted that this movie takes place before 54. Yeah, that's true. Like Godzilla -1 is set like it looks like days after the bombs are dropped to end World War II. So yeah, I agree. I can't wait. Godzilla -1 looks good, and what a dark title. Less than zero, basically. But they didn't call it less than zero. They called it -1. Interesting. I only have to look in the mirror to see Mutant Madness. I love it. What's my opinion on the CG animated Turtles movie from 2007? Right in the middle of the Ninja Turtles movie, but the middle is still pretty low overall. And I love Ninja Turtles, but I don't think that I think that they've had better luck in the comics and TV than they have in movies overall. I do sometimes use Zipatone. Hold on, where was that? Yeah, I do sometimes use Zipatone. I love it. They couldn't call it less than zero, or Bret Easton Ellis would have tried to get that paycheck. Yeah. Yep, I know it's an existing title. -1. Any of you all drawing these days? Ooh, hold on. I think a super chat just popped up. Let's take a look. Oh, 2 super chats. Cool. Excited for the new Hayao Miyazaki film. Totally understand and respect that. When does he do bad, right? I mean, come on. Miyazaki is a treasure. And Studio Ghibli is probably going to have a great reputation for a long time. Long time. A video about Stanley's funny comics with Al Jaffe and Dan DeCarlo would be interesting. I never heard of it, but Homer the Happy Ghost is kind of hilarious after my niece and I discovered it. Yeah, well, that does sound interesting because I haven't read a lot of that stuff, so that would be interesting to me. I love discovering new things. Building a model kit should be drawing, but in a slump. Man, I know what you mean by that, Mike. Boy, do I. It can be so hard to get motivated sometimes, and I'm with you 100%. What model are you building specifically? Something for you? Something that your son's into? Just kind of curious, man. but hope you're doing well. And I really appreciate you jumping onto the stream. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Slowly wrapping up my comic. Good. I'm glad that I could do anything to help. Yeah. Wait, the Stanley autobiography that's written like a horror comic? Wait, no. That's written like a horror? I'm looking forward to reading Scioli's Stanley biographical comic. I'm looking forward to that. That's interesting to me, yeah. Horror comic, that's interesting. Who's my favorite inker and why is he Klaus Janson? Asking the easy questions there, aren't you, Dr. Shoebill? My favorite inker. You know, I have only nothing but good things to say about Klaus Janson, that's for sure. But you know what? As I've gotten older, I've really become drawn to the inking work of Tom Palmer, who was an exceptional artist in his own right, but did a lot of inking. And I think he really brought out some of the best stuff for people like Gene Colan and stuff like that. Like found a way to help adapt that into comics in a really good way. A lot of people saying Al Milgrom. I have nothing bad to say about Milgrom. I just never quite felt like I connected with it in a big way. But maybe I need to study it a little bit more if so many people are always saying nice things. Every once in a while, somebody can just tell me, well, what if you take this into consideration? And all of a sudden you're like, wait, well, that does sort of change my outlook. So, yeah, I'm always open to trying to understand the way people see things. And music is funny like that. Sometimes, you know, I've heard a song a million times, never really meant anything to me. Then all of a sudden, one day I hear it in a certain context and I can just sort of connect with it on an emotional level. Funny how art can be like that. Wally Wood and Frank Frazetta. Yeah, certainly incredible. Certainly incredible. Boy, there's so many good inkers out there. And Bob McLeod, right? Spelled a little differently. Bob Wyatchek, isn't it? Wyatchek, I think. Bernie Wrightson. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with me, folks, even after I've obviously slowed down on what I'm talking about as I just sort of doodle around. But I haven't done this in a little while, and this is my excuse to just veg out a tiny bit and draw, which I feel like I don't get to do as much as I like to. I know I'm not a great artist, that my stuff can be pretty stiff, but I like to draw, so I find this very fun and very relaxing. Just grabbing random things. Any version of the Turtles in the various types of media is good to me. Curious and excited to see how the films and series and their figures, comics, games, etc. continue with their... Oh, I see. That's the first half of something. Continue with their... This is the first time I've seen you draw on a stream, though you have shown your artwork before. I used to do it like regularly when I used to do these live streams for the weekly spinner rack when I started, and just kind of got so busy I phased them out a little. But I like drawing. Don't sell yourself short. You have a great eye and skillful anatomy. Well, sometimes, Mike. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I feel like I'm very inconsistent and I'm very slow. Those are some of the things. Oh yeah, I heard that that's really good. I want to read that. I do like that Texas Blood. I respect Jacob Phillips. So Enfield Gang Massacre, I do want to pick up. I just haven't seen it yet. But I do want to read that. So wish me luck. Forgot topic up Enfield Gang. Oh, the rest of Brian Taylor Close says Chloe, sorry. Current emphasis on the actual teenage part of the title. That being said, Bad Boys is the only good Mike Bay stuff. I think that the current Ninja Turtles movie is great for finding an area that hasn't been explored quite as much as the rest. And I think that, over time, now that they've been around for a while, that's probably going to go back and forth. And here, like sometimes you're like, okay, time to emphasize the ninja part a little bit more. It's time to emphasize the teenage part a little bit more. We've done a lot of sci-fi. Let's do some more sort of supernatural stuff. We'll do some body horror stuff. There's a lot of flexibility to what you can do with TMNT, surprisingly. So that's what's cool about it. It lends itself very well to reimaginations. Some things you want sort of one ongoing continuity for the most part, but Ninja Turtles is surprisingly adaptable to different takes on the material. And I really like this one for its emphasis on comedy. Because come on, there's something inherently hilarious about Ninja Turtles. They're turtles that are ninjas. That's hilarious, and that's not always the part that gets super emphasized. Even like when it's a little campy or goofy, it doesn't always get necessarily the comedy part emphasized as much as this current version, this iteration. But I do like it a lot. I still have a bit of a soft spot for the original live action version, but this is definitely my second favorite version, and over time it might even take over as my main favorite. I don't know. Oh, I definitely recommend Last Ronin. Now that's a really serious sort of somber take on it, but yeah. I like the perspective. Thank you. That's nice. That's really nice. I really like the 2012 cartoon. I have not seen a lot of it, but I have seen several episodes, and I really like that iteration. I think that they had a great take on the turtles' personalities, and it was a little bit different with what they did by making characters like April and Casey also teenagers. They did some interesting stuff with the Krang, and they remixed a lot of existing ideas, which is something that I think that the IDW series does very well. A lot of like remixing of all sorts of previous versions of Ninja Turtles to create something kind of new. I'm obviously just sort of jumping up and down on this to keep myself interested in different parts. But I probably won't stay on this live stream long enough to finish this whole thing, just to set expectations. I'll just sort of answer some more questions and have a little bit of fun. But, it's already 7. This is usually about the time I start to wrap it up, in case I'm going, we'll like have dinner with my family. Try to have a little bit of family time on Monday nights. Ninja Turtles are one of my favorite things to draw because it uses a lot of human anatomy, but not exclusively, which means you have some room to play around and it can still look correct. It doesn't look wrong, which is kind of nice as an artist, to feel like you're not locked into something, and if you make a mistake, it just doesn't look right anymore. It's very frustrating as an artist to feel like you just went off model without meaning to. People and cars, things that we see every day, can look wrong very, very fast, because we just, without thinking about it, like our minds just know if something looks a little bit off. But there's other things that we can't pick up on as fast. That's very kind of you. My favorite turtle's Donatello. I really like him. Family. It was Donnie as a kid, now Raph because I'm a bitter old man. Wow, thanks for the super chat. How do you feel about Ernie Chan's inking? He was my favorite inker, especially over John Buscema's pencils. Yeah, I mean, there were so many great Filipino inkers that were coming in to the industry in the 70s. I would also put, along with Ernie Chow / Ernie Chan, depending on what he's going by in a certain book, I really liked Alfredo Alcala's inking. I felt like that was very lush, very organic. I'm trying to think of the terms that I would use, but there's a lot of great detail in the stuff that Ernie did. Lots of nice things to say about Ernie's inking. Yeah, definitely really, really admire his work. Wow, another super chat. Thank you. Just a super chat. That's very, very kind. You could call it an impression. For me, I think I just became Vin Diesel. Family. Do you like to draw Spider-Man with big or small eyes? I wouldn't say that I draw him enough that I necessarily have a strong opinion, but I will say that, a version that I really like that isn't out there a ton, but I really like this version, Cory Walker. Go back and find the Marvel team-up issue that Kirkman and Cory did with Spider-Man meeting Invincible. Cory draws like very sort of small, but like really precise eyes, little angular, very, very nice looking. Very nice looking. What was this? Alex Nino. Alex Nino, so talented. The definition, more or less, of an underrated artist. Like an artist that lots of other artists appreciate, but not always an artist that fans will remember necessarily. But boy, always made whatever he worked on look a lot better. No question. Feel like my inks are looking a little too fat, but I don't know. I'm having fun. I'm having a lot of fun. Thanks for staying with me. I really like the Japanese Spidey designs from the live action show. Me too. Me too. I think that was a great looking Spider-Man. My day job has been a little tough lately. I had somebody try to use some fake documents the other day. I had somebody tell me within like about 3 minutes of meeting me that they just didn't want to work with me because they didn't have a good feeling. They like, we need this deal to go perfect. We just don't like you. Can we work with anyone else? I never get told that. I think a lot of people think that, like, I'm a pretty nice, easygoing person. So it's just sort of been a tough week, work-wise. Both my wife and my nephew have been a little sick, so that's kind of a bummer. I want them to feel good. And just trying to get out more episodes. Just trying. Oh, wow. Another super chat? Hey, Chris, if I ever crowdfund my indie comic, I want to do Kickstarter only. I saw that Indiegogo has so many Comicsgate people in it, and I do not want to associate with them. Only Kickstarter. Well, you are right that they use that a lot, but it's not just them. I mean, there's also publishers that use Indiegogo, and I don't think that that's necessarily I don't think you associate yourself with anything politically by using a business like Indiegogo versus Kickstarter. And there's others too. I think Zoop seems to do a lot of great stuff, honestly. If I was doing a crowdfunded comic personally at this point, I would give some very strong thoughts to looking into Zoop as my first option, just because I like how they can sort of, per campaign, they can adjust like how they implement rewards and integrate them and stuff. It seems like a lot of great stuff. Oh, well, then you should never go there again. If they said something that offensive, you should just definitely leave. But I think that crowdfunding overall is a pretty fascinating modern way of getting your stories out to people that might not have been exposed to them otherwise. What an amazing time to want to make comics in some ways. Very few barriers to entry because you can publish online and you can crowdfund things. Just a really tremendous time to want to break in. And hopefully as time goes on, there will be more opportunities to make better money making comics, because it pays well for the people at the top. Sometimes it's very hard to get to that top echelon. And I wish more people could comfortably make a living and not have any mental stress about like the decision to go into a creative field, doing something that they truly love and are passionate about. I think that should be a legitimate option that I want more people to be able to have access to. I don't know what the solution is to making that easier, but if anybody ever has a good idea, I'll be the first in line to support it and shout from the rooftops about a way to make art affordable. The second one, ZOOP. I think that they've done some really nice campaigns. They did the campaign for Nick Pitara's Axe Wielder John, and they did the campaign for Stardust, the Super Wizard, like an upcoming anthology. So yeah. Why would anyone say they don't want to work with you? I asked. They just said, we just don't have a good feeling about this. We don't like you. I was like, okay. Oh, sorry. I thought that was replying to me. If you tell me that I did something to offend you or I'm not doing something right, cool. But like, just tell me, because I'll either A, try to make it right, or B, be able to hopefully make it right next time. I don't want to be a jerk to work with or anything weird like that. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm a great person, but I am saying, like, I legit try to live my life trying to be good to other people. I feel that like comes back to you. I don't believe in necessarily direct karma per se, but I believe in being kind. I think that it gives you opportunities. And so I try to be fair and to be kind, even to people that I don't know. I try. My goal is to be a good person and just not make the world a miserable place. There's so many problems in the world from so many different sources. I don't want to add to that. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I probably mess up and irritate people or ruin somebody's day here and there, but I try not to be. I really do. I try to be kind. So if somebody says we don't like you, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hold on to that forever, but if you could tell me why, I'd love the opportunity to make it right. But obviously it does stick with me a little. Look, I think that one of my weaknesses, and I try to identify these as I get older so that I can work on myself, is I do think I'm almost too empathetic to the point where, I'm what you'd call a people pleaser. If I feel like people don't like me, that upsets me to some degree. Logically, I can let some of that go, but emotionally, sometimes it stays with me a little longer than it probably should. I should be able to let some of that stuff go better. And I think I am now compared to like when I was younger, able to let that go. But I want to make others happy. I do. To the extent that I will often put others ahead of myself. And that isn't always the right thing to do. That isn't always. Thank you for the super chat. You don't have to keep giving me money, but I sincerely appreciate the support. And trust me, I'm not a political person and I'm not against diversity. I just want to make comics for fun and for the love of the medium. That's it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. That's fine. Go for it. I hope you're successful. I sincerely believe that if you're going to do anything like storytelling or art-wise, that you have to be passionate about it. It has to be something that interests and excites you on some level, whatever level that is. It has to work for you first. And that there's a very good chance after that there's going to be people like you that will also get excited by what excites you. I believe that. Now, let's all sing some karaoke. Sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe. I can't carry a note for the life of me. You put a gun to my head, and I wouldn't be able to carry a note. I like singing karaoke and stuff with friends, but I cannot sing. Can't. Let's see. When I was a server, there was this old couple that would come in every few days, eat 60% of the meal, and decide they didn't like it. Had nothing to do with me, the restaurant, or the food. Were they trying to like maybe get out of paying the bill, do you think? Yeah, I didn't think my kitties would come down today. That's why I wore this. I decided to dress up like my cats, and I'm the cat. I'm the. Well, I did that a couple weeks ago, didn't I, Alex? Yeah, I don't have my ukulele here anymore. I've returned it to Chrissy. Toxic gossip train. I believe karaoke means something like kara might mean like open or something. I can't quite remember. Okay is definitely short for like orchestra. Like it's just shortening that to like okay. But kara, I can't remember. Kara might just mean sing or something like that, or voice. I can't remember. It's a good question. Chrissy and I have been studying Japanese pretty hardcore together. She's doing even better than me because Yeah, I'm down to like what? Just over 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks till we go back to Japan. We're going to go for 2 weeks. We're going to spend some time in Tokyo. We're going to spend some time in Kyoto. And we're going to spend a few nights out in the countryside, fairly remote, as long as we can figure out either how to drive or travel there. We've booked an onsen, like sort of a what do you call it? Like an inn with a bath. So I'm pretty excited about it. I always have a good time there. And that said, I think after this trip, it's time to prioritize visiting another country. Some of the ones that excite me for potentially going to would include places where like my family was from, which includes like New Zealand or Sweden. I could also have a really good time going to Kenya, I think, and Sao Paulo, Brazil. So those are some of the top ones that I really want to go to. Kata means silent? Maybe it does. Maybe it does. Do I have my phone? I'm going to look it up. I've got an app to help me with my Japanese, so I'm just going to put in and see if kata means anything like that. Could just mean from an orchestra. I got to look it up. I'm looking it up. Kata, I'm right. Kata means empty. I know that's what I said. And okay, which is short for orchestra. Singing without music, an empty orchestra. I was right. Kata does mean empty. I'm so happy that I had that right. Haha. That was my first thing that I said. Good. Thank you for the confirmation. Thank you. That makes me really happy that I got that right. It means I'm learning a tiny bit. This is fun to ink because like you could just load it up with all sorts of detail on stuff like the shell and it would look right. It would look good. Has anyone out there ever worked on the Ninja Turtles officially in any capacity? I just know that there's 2 or 3 pros that are here usually, and I was just curious if anybody's ever had the opportunity to work on Ninja Turtles. I would mostly like to do my own ideas if I ever got into comics on a bigger level, but Ninja Turtles is one that I would like if any opportunity was there, I would probably jump at it, to be honest, because I just like them so much. Do we have any other big movies coming out for the rest of the summer? I feel like we're kind of past all the big stuff, aren't we? I feel like Ninja Turtles was sort of the last big one. Well, I guess I'll probably see Blue Beetle just because it's comics related and it can give me something to talk about here on the show. But I wouldn't say that, to be honest, is like a big one that I've been looking forward to. Oh, you did? You got to interview Rick Veitch? That's fantastic. That's great. Happy for you. I use Duolingo every day, but I also watch videos and I've got some workbooks at home, like Genki is a popular one, but I've also got some others. Yeah. Which covers did EJ work on? Yeah, I don't know if it's got a subtitle to it, but the stuff from Marvel, EJ's been doing covers for that. He does a lot of covers. He's done some other stuff for like Godzilla through IDW. Oh yeah, I will see that. I'll always see whatever Martin Scorsese does, just out of curiosity. Oh, for the Comics Journal. Wow, that's great. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. I used Yo Soko in college. I thought those books were pretty good. Yo Soko. Okay. Yo Soko. I don't consider November necessarily part of the summer anymore. Isn't that like fall? You got to meet Peter Laird at a Boston Comic Con. That's great. I've met Kevin Eastman. I've never met Peter Laird, and he doesn't go out as much anymore. I did do some Ultraman covers. Yeah. I'm sure if you just Googled EJ Sue Ultraman, you'd see what he does. Genki is great. That was my Japanese language textbook in undergrad. Duolingo isn't bad, but I primarily use that for Spanish. That makes sense. Well, maybe I didn't say summer. I guess I thought I said summer, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I am obviously slightly distracted because I'm drawing. Or maybe just call this doodling. I don't know. Sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe. But I'm having fun right now. I feel like I just haven't had time to sit down and draw a whole lot lately. So, even though I should be like wrapping up the show, I'm just having too much fun. I'll just go for a little longer unless my wife is like, "Get up here, it's time for dinner." She would never yell at me. Never worked on TMNT. Met Kevin Eastman at Golden Apple when he came in for a signing. I showed him my TMNT artwork and he loved it. That made my day. That's so cool. I did Ultraman covers. Mine were the ones with the stick figures and googly eyes. I didn't see those, but congratulations. You hope I draw more at the end of streams? Thank you. I'll try. I'll also try to every once in a while mix in short interviews because I had fun talking with Sarah Frazetta last week. I reached out to Rick Remender because I had some questions for him about some of his upcoming and recent work. My shoulder is actually starting to feel kind of bad again. It never has recovered its full flexibility yet. I can for instance, I can't raise. Nah, it hurts. It works. It's functional to a degree, but I'm still having some the pain is growing lately. I'll leave it at that. The pain has been growing lately. I think that the steroid shot that I had injected in there is wearing off. Maybe I can get another one sometime soon. I hope but I can use the arm, and it isn't in constant agony, but sometimes when I move it in certain positions, yeah, it doesn't feel good. It's kind of frustrating. Just a weird thing. Frozen shoulder. It just happens, I guess, to some people, and it takes a long time to heal. Long time. I think IDW still has Sonic, yeah. I'm not a huge Sonic fan, so I don't track that too well. Oh, you did? You did a TMNT cover, EJ? I wonder if I bought it or not. I don't remember. Oh, you like the Hollies? Yeah, sorry, it's just in my head. Sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe. Sorry to punish you like that. Sorry to punish you. You deserve better. You deserve better. It's 7:30. I don't want to end because I'm having fun, but I do have other stuff that I need to do, including working on the next comic Tropes. Gotta have some dinner with the fam. That part I'm looking forward to. I appreciate all you guys sticking around for this. I really do. I have a great time talking about comics and getting some back and forth dialogue going. You guys ask questions of stuff that I can't think of by myself. You know, I need that second voice. Otherwise, very boring if I don't jump in. You love Tech Jacket. EJ, you hear that? Another Tech Jacket fan. Tech Jacket was really, really fun. Tech Jacket, yes. I'm glad somebody else appreciates EJ's work on that. That was a fairly early thing for our beloved EJ Sue. I'm glad somebody else is reading it. That's cool. Thank you. Hey, wait a minute. I'm curious. My sister, Jean, are you here? And if so, did I miss you saying hello? I'll give it another couple minutes just in case she was here, because I want to say hello if my sister's here, because I just realized if she is, I never said hello. So I'm going to give her, if she's here, a minute to say hello. Oh, that's a fairly obscure one, all things considered. Cloudfall. Cloudfall looked great. Cloudfall looked great. That's very kind of you. Tech Jacket rules. Yep. Have a nice night. I'm probably about to end it, because I think if she was here, she'd say hello. I'm pretty sure she's visiting my dad right now, so she's probably having fun. Cloudfall, haven't heard of it for a while. Yeah, I hadn't either. Back then, I was definitely like carefully proofing everything that Robert put out. So I remember Cloudfall very well. I definitely have a copy of it somewhere around here, but that's not one I've heard of in a while. I'm surprised Robert has never dropped that into like, the overall Invincible universe, now that I think about it. There's a lot to like about Cloudfall, and felt like it actually, if you ever wanted it to, it could connect into the Tech Jacket mythology as well, a little bit anyway. We'll see. All right, I guess she isn't here. That's fine. I just was going to say hello to my sister if she was here. So there, we got like about, and I would want to do a lot more work on this shell to like have the shading consistent and such, but we got a little bit done, didn't we? We did it because you guys were here to support me, and I appreciate that. I'll be back next week with another episode of like this weekly spinner rack, talking about news and such, and giving some serious thought to exactly what I'm going to wrap up for comic tropes next. I'm not 100% sure, but we shall see soon enough, I guess. Thank you all for joining me. It's always my honor and my privilege and my pleasure to speak with so many of you wonderful folks. Have a great week until I see you next time. You know what I'm going to tell you. Keep reading comics. Take care.